Great crisis. The growing opposition to Putin. Risk of a coup in Moscow.
The cards are being redistributed on the table, and Ukraine's hand looks pretty strong. While Putin remains silent, Zelensky continues to cry of victory almost every day. News of the success of the Ukrainian army continues to come from the front. The voice of the Ukrainian artillery began to be heard in the corridors of the Kremlin. There are new developments in the war. The fastest advance since Ukraine drove Russian forces out of the capital in March turned the tide of the 6-month war. Moscow lost its gains and months of fighting in the east in just a few days. Zelensky set the target as Crimea. The effects of what happened in Ukraine began to be felt in Moscow. The voices of Putin's opponents are getting louder now. The people were quite restless, and there were occasional riots. Who did not come out of the Kremlin out of fear, finally began to ask Kadyrov for help. Thousands of Chechen fighters are reportedly sent to Moscow to support the Russian National Guard as fears of a coup against Vladimir Putin grow. The National Guard, Rosgvardia, is an internal military force that reports directly to the President of Russia. It was established in 2016 to fight terrorism and protect public order. The force is currently led by Viktor Zolotov, a former bodyguard of the Russian leader. Rosgvardia is often referred to as Putin's private army and is often used to violently suppress peaceful anti-regime demonstrations. Reports have surfaced that as many as 7,000 Chechens have been recruited into the National Guard. This deployment led to speculation that the Russian despot feared growing public unrest and a possible coup attempt from his elite. The numbers range from 3,000 to 7,000. Allegedly at the disposal of Zolotov. Chechnya is ruled by the son of a former warlord who fought against the Russians in the First Chechen War of 1994 to 1996. Ramzan Kadyrov is a staunch supporter of Putin and sent some of his fighters to Ukraine to support the Russian army. He criticized Russia's commanders for failing to deal with Ukraine's Kharkiv counter and threatened to intervene personally if things didn't improve quickly. The Chechen leader said in an audio post they made a mistake and I think they will draw the necessary conclusions. If there is no change in strategy today or tomorrow, I will have to speak with the Ministry of Defense, leadership and the leadership of the country to explain to them the real situation on the ground. This is a very interesting situation. I would say surprising. He implied that Putin was unaware of how serious the situation had gotten. Recent political developments in Russia have fueled fears of growing domestic unrest. Last week, local councillors from St. Petersburg demanded that the Russian leader be tried for treason. After inflicting heavy losses on the Kherson front, Vladimir Putin faces a mutiny among his elite troops. This came amid unconfirmed reports that Russian forces in the city of Kherson may be on the verge of surrender. While Ukraine continues its counterattack on two fronts, the President of Russia has seen his army take a full attack in recent days. While the Kiev army continued its rapid advance in the Kharkiv region, it came to the aid of all Russian resistance in the northeast. Over the weekend, the strategic cities of Kupiansky and Izium were retaken from the Russians, who seemed powerless to stop the Ukrainian offensive. The Ukrainians have liberated more than 1,100 square miles on the Kharkiv front since they launched their counterattack last week and are poised to make more gains. Kiev's southern counteroffensive is gaining momentum as Ukrainian commanders try to keep pressure on Putin's besieged troops. The Russians deployed some of their best units to defend the area, such as sailors and paratroopers. But these elite units could not prevent the Ukrainian army from breaking through the Russian defense and advancing. Moreover, they suffered great losses that deeply affected their morale. Russia's 810th Naval Brigade, normally based in Crimea, has seen 80% of its unit destroyed in recent clashes. The surviving soldiers reportedly had extremely low morale and refused to return to combat duty, according to Kiev's military senior commanders. They largely refused to return to the war zone. There are unconfirmed reports that Russian forces in Kherson may be ready to surrender. The port city is a key target for Ukrainian commanders, and its capture will provide a platform to retake Crimea. Kherson is strategically located on the Black Sea and the Dnipro River. In early March, it was captured by the Russians after its defenders fled without a fight. Analysts believe that it is only a matter of time before the Russian troops in Kherson surrender due to their exhaustion. Russian troops are in their trenches 24/7 and under constant attack. It's only a matter of time before these Russian troops disperse and flee. Meanwhile, the military command of Russia suspended the sending of new, previously formed units to the war in Ukraine. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine published this in a post, Ukrinform reported. The military command of the Russian Federation has suspended the sending of new, previously formed units to the territory of Ukraine. The current situation in the field of operations and distrust of the High Command forced a large number of volunteers to categorically refuse the possibility of service. In combat conditions, he said in the report, according to the General Staff, the situation is affected by the information about the actual number of those killed in the operation, while the losses of private military companies and those mobilized from the temporarily occupied territories are not taken into account. The situation worsens due to the general attitude towards their own wounded. Especially in Russian hospitals, the diagnosis and nature of war injuries were deliberately simplified and time was not given for rehabilitation. It is urged to prepare for the possibility of the collapse of the Russian Federation as Ukrainian forces continue to make successful gains in Kharkiv and counter-offensive operations, and Russia's exports of energy and weapons begin to suffer. Former U.S. Army Europe Commander General Ben Hodges explained that Russia's pillars of industry, energy, and arms exports began to suffer during the invasion of Ukraine. While warning that the West must prepare for Russia's collapse, General Ben Hodges said the war is becoming increasingly unbearable for Russian citizens. It's a really unethical Russian population. There are 120 different ethnic groups out there, and most of these other ethical groups are paying the price for Putin's war. The vast majority of deaths come to St. Petersburg from far outside of Moscow, and I think people and others in Tuva and Siberia or Chechnya and others may see an opportunity to escape. It seems that the end of the road is coming for Putin. As Zelensky said, Ukraine will be liberated in the Kremlin. Anti-Putin voices are getting louder every day. We hope that soon this war will end and peace will rise again all over the world.